Aloha and welcome to Leeward Community College's First on the Horizon webinar, focusing on our Wahiawa Product Development Center. My name is Carlos Penaloza, and I am proud to be Leeward Community College's Chancellor. At Leeward Community College, we work together to nurture and inspire all students. We help them attain their goals through high-quality liberal arts and career and technical education. We foster students to become responsible global citizens, locally, nationally, and internationally. We advance the educational goals of all with a special commitment to Native Hawaiians. Leeward serves over 6,000 students any given semester, with over 10,000 students coming through the college each year. We are proud to say that even during a pandemic, over 1,000 students earned a college credential this last academic year. While many of our offerings provide direct support to the west side of Oahu, some of our programs through online delivery support the entire state, as is the case with programs like education and health information technology. 2020 brought a great deal of challenges for the college, but the college community persevered and we have been able to adapt to the conditions and celebrate accomplishments. Our faculty and staff pivoted to offering most services and classes in a remote capacity. Our public and inside spaces have been reconfigured to our current COVID-19 norm, with social distancing, signage, barriers, and the use of technology. Our students have benefited from additional technology, laptop loaners, hotspots for those that need it. We have participated in food drives and mass COVID-19 testing to support our state in its effort to recover. More recently, Leeward celebrated becoming the first University of Hawaii campus to achieve production of over 97% of the energy we consume through the installation of our photovoltaic canopies over our parking lot. Needless to say, Leeward Community College is living its mission. As a community college, it is important to have a good feel for the community's needs. COVID has thrown us a few curveballs, and Leeward has been here to support those that need it. The state's unemployment rates remain high and workforce needs have shifted, at least temporarily, from hospitality and tourism. Leeward has invested and is refocusing to support the state's recovery and our future. Workforce development has become a big drive. As such, the college has been working toward the development of programming to fulfill major workforce gaps in the state. Through the Office of Continuing Education and Workforce Development, programming originally developed for traditional instruction quickly shifted online to maintain production of our trained workforce. We have also accelerated offerings and opened additional sections in support of the Oahu Back to Work efforts, which is currently funding for individuals impacted by COVID to complete training that gets them job ready. And although we are able to celebrate many lives changed, there is more to do. Through the work and vision of our college, as well as our legislators, Leeward Community College has embarked in the establishment of our Wahiawa Product Development Center in Central Oahu. This site will provide training to contribute to the growth of Hawaii's agricultural industry, build capacity for local residents to develop entrepreneurial skills, provide community access to facilities and resources in support of small businesses, and serve as educational, consulting, and incubators in support of Hawaii's future. Working with our local high schools, farmers, and businesses, the facility will support the development of products from concept to storefront to continue diversifying our state's economy and reducing our dependency on hospitality and tourism. The space will have industrial-grade facilities and labs that include convection ovens, dehydrators, pasteurizers, autoclaves, distillation kits, packaging, and storage equipment. This effort has been made possible through the support and vision of our legislators. Senator Donovan de la Cruz has been instrumental to colleges like ours in carrying out our missions and keeping our sights set on the state's future. Today, we are privileged to have Senator Donovan De La Cruz with us as he shares his vision on how the Wahiawa Product Development Center will contribute to our state's future. Senator?
Aloha, I'm Donovan De La Cruz from the Hawaii State Senate. Thank you for your interest in the Wahiawa Product Development Center. This project has been a long time coming. For many years, people have talked about how we're going to revitalize agriculture to replace sugar and pineapple. This is the beginning of that effort. As we talk about value-added products and exports, creating jobs, this Product Development Center will help the future and many of our students, many of our community to become economically viable and productive citizens. This is an exciting opportunity, and we welcome you to visit the center and be a part of the future. Mahalo.
Mahalo for that, Senator De La Cruz. As we begin to transition into the panel discussion, I want to share that we are in the process of finalizing design for the new facility and development of programming aligned with the mission of the Wahiawa Product Development Center. Through engagement with stakeholders, we are projecting completing the design and construction for a fall 2022 opening. This type of work could not happen without your public support. As you may know, Giving Tuesday was just 2 days ago, but it's not too late to donate to support Leeward Community College. All webinar registrants will receive an email with a recording of today's webinar. The email will also contain a link to Leeward Community College's giving site. Okay, and now let's get on with today's program. I am delighted to introduce our participants as they engage in discussions that are helping align our design and implementation efforts. To start, our moderator, Ron Umehira, Leeward Community College's Dean of Career and Technical Education. He has been serving in this capacity since 2009 and supports our credit and non-credit workforce programming for the college. Our first panelist is Chad Buck, founder and owner of Hawaii Food Services Alliance and Hawaii Food Services Logistics, the only Food Safety Modernization Act compliant single source solution for dry, chill, frozen, ocean, air, and land distribution in the state of Hawaii. Next, we have Fred Lau, owners of Mari's Garden, an 18-acre parcel on land in the heart of Mililani. This space serves as a marketplace and agritourism resource for the island community. Fred and his son have also began shifting toward food production. Needless to say, both Chad and Fred represent the field expertise necessary in the establishment of a facility that is so tied to our state's agricultural future. If you have any burning questions, please feel free to submit them. We will try to get through as many as we can. If you wish to share your contact information, we can get back to your question after today's webinar. To get our conversation going, our moderator, Ron Umehira, will start our first probing question.
Mahalo, Carlos. Aloha, everyone. I am Ron Umehira. I'm the Dean of Career Technical Education here at Leeward Community College. And it gives me great pleasure to serve as your moderator this morning, as we have two outstanding industry experts that will be sharing their knowledge and experiences about Hawaii's agricultural industry and about product distribution. We will also be talking about our new college initiative, which is the Wahiawa Product Development Center. And as Senator De La Cruz had mentioned, this center is going to benefit and support Hawaii's agricultural industry. We have a series of questions, prepared questions, to ask our panelists this morning. And we also received several questions from participants that had registered for this webinar. So if you have any questions that you'd like to pose to our panelists, please write them in a chat and we will incorporate that into our conversation this morning. So without further ado, let's start with our first question to our panelists. What have we learned during this pandemic about our state's economy, and where do we see agribusinesses in Hawaii's future? Chad, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Ron. I think what we learned during the pandemic was Hawaii's agriculture was significantly tourism-centric and not so much focused on sustainability. I think any walk down the grocery store aisle would show you that during the pandemic, particularly in the first part of the pandemic where there was a lot of hoarding going on and people were concerned about food supply. I think secondly, we learned through the pandemic that agriculture for Hawaii is not an option anymore, it's a necessity. And I think as we gear towards climate change and the coming extreme weather and so on that people are predicting, or the scientists are predicting, that agriculture and growing our own agriculture in Hawaii is more important now than it has ever been.
Great. Thanks, Chad. Fred?
Yeah, thank you, Ron. I think many of us saw firsthand how fragile our economy that is built around tourism on this island in the very middle of the Pacific has affected us. For us, overnight, we saw our hotel banquet accounts, all of our restaurants, and all of our cruise ship accounts disappear. So we were sitting on 16,000 pounds of lettuce in one of our most productive times of the year, and we had to give it away, sell it at a discount, or throw it away. And that was an eye-opener for us. The blessing, I thought, was that the people in our community realized how important buying local is. It's not just a saying, it's not just buy local. It's very important to keep our farmers working and our agricultural community working. And I think that was one of the best things that happened out of all of this, is the support from our community was just unbelievable.
Great. Thanks, Fred. Our second question, where do you see opportunities for Central Oahu and the future of agriculture in Hawaii? Chad?
I think Central Oahu is the natural place and the obvious choice for where our agricultural hub, our main agricultural hub should be. I look at Central Oahu, and particularly in the Whitmore area, as the breadbasket for Oahu, or the rice bowl for Oahu. It's strategically positioned. It's protected from extreme weather as far as hurricanes and tsunamis. The vision I see, and this was sparked some time ago with Senator Dela Cruz and Jimmy Nakatani of ADC. You needed a strategic place to be able to grow food, hub, and create a hub where all areas across the island can come into, hopefully. I mean, that would certainly make sense to do that, and then spoke out to the island and feed the island of Oahu. So I see Central Oahu as absolutely strategic into the future, and I see our movements into Central Oahu in the Whitmore area is not just the right thing to do now, but it's the right thing for our children and our children's children, particularly as we move towards the future and what we've learned through the pandemic. So hopefully these hard lessons that we've learned in the pandemic won't be forgotten, and we'll be able to continue that momentum into the future.
So you see Wahiawa as like the hub and spoke central area?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thanks, Chad. Fred?
Yeah, so I agree. Senator Dela Cruz has been instrumental in securing over 3,000 acres for the Agribusiness Development Corporation in the Whitmore, Wahiawa area. This is definitely has the potential of becoming the breadbasket for Oahu. And what we'd like to see is more of these hubs on the outer islands. This will be the test. This will be the litmus test if we can make this work. I think that the dedication to putting up the Wahiawa Community Food Hub and building the Product Development Center is going to be a tremendous opportunity, not only for farmers, but for entrepreneurs and innovators that are going to come into the area, and also for the residents and the working population of the area.
Yeah, great.
I'd like to add on to what Fred said, and I agree with him 100%, is having an area where you have the concentrated expertise, the concentrated food science, the concentrated food safety. Part of the problem, a huge part of the problem during the pandemic, is most farmers were geared towards tourism. And so much so that when tourists stopped coming, the farmers were left out in the cold. And when you have a concentration like we have at Whitmore, or what's proposed to be at Whitmore is envisioned, you'll be able to have the food safety and the food science there, and local products should go to local grocers, local retailers, local clubs to be available for local people. And so, because you and I stayed here during the pandemic, and you and I walked through the grocery stores and saw what was going on. And so this envisioned Whitmore area is absolutely key to diversify our ag economy, not just for hotels, not just for tourists, but to go into everybody's grocery store and have more product locally available every day.
Very good. Thanks, Chad. Our next question, what do you see as major challenges that farmers face in the region in the next 5 to 10 years? Fred?
Well, I think, like in all industry, labor shortages are particularly concerning for us, especially in the advances that are coming to agriculture, such as robotics and AI and even hydroponics. It's really, really hard to find trained, skilled people in Hawaii. Our water infrastructure in that central area, that central plain area, is almost non-existent. The ADC has had to develop the water infrastructure, put in reservoirs, put in pipes, because the pineapple company did not have any requirement for daily watering in the area. And also critical is that that land has been fallow for over 10 years now, over a decade. And so a lot of it is overgrown. So the part of the challenge is not only getting water there, but actually clearing the land and getting all the vegetation, the overgrowth off the land.
Thanks, Fred. Chad?
I see just on the distribution side and to keep the supply chain moving, one of the biggest challenges, or some of the biggest challenges for farmers into the next 5 to 10 years will be the ability to aggregate, the ability to coordinate crops to meet the need and meet the demand, the ability to have the food science and food safety, without which you're not going to be allowed into the grocers, the clubs, and the retailers because of the FSMA compliance by federal law. So getting those things dialed in is absolutely critical. Value-added services, where we can take a farm product and create a value-added product, and be able to drive more margin for the farmers, is going to be absolutely critical. And back to that centralized concept, no one farmer can afford that type of equipment and those types of processes. And so you will have to hui up, you will have to work together and have those services available to be able to aggregate the crops across the island and put them in a place, and so that value-added processing would also be coupled with cold storage, chill storage, distribution, et cetera. And without those pieces, there is not a sustainable agriculture movement in Hawaii. And so I think this is absolutely critical, and now's the time, particularly on the coattails of the pandemic rolling through here, and we see that need more than ever.
Thanks, Chad. Fred, you talked about one of the challenges as far as labor shortages. So let's ask some questions in regards to technology, agricultural technology. Are you currently using any technology in your operation specifically tied to production? And if so, what kind of technology?
Well, we're a little different. We grow using aquaponic and hydroponic growing methods. And we're all indoors. We're inside of greenhouses. Part of it was food safety concerns, and the other part of it was productivity. And we just believe that controlled environment utilizing hydroponic equipment is very, very productive. we'd like to get toward automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence in our systems, but that would take a major bit of scaling up and marketing of all that product that would come off of being an automated greenhouse. We do use sensors and monitors in the greenhouses, so a lot of it is computerized, and we can control some of our curtains and venting on the greenhouses using our computer system. But we have a long way to go still.
Chad, how about you?
On the technology side, and I'll take it from Fred's production side to what's necessary for an island state. Most distributors, if you're in the mainland and you're getting to a certain size, you can buy off-the-shelf distribution warehouse management software. Over the last 20 years, we've actually had to write our own systems. We had to write our own codes. We have our own software team. We have our own business intelligence analytics team, where we write the programs, when we design the programs specific to an island state, not just for the aggregation of products. We do distribution and logistics for about 47 local producers and manufacturers. But those producers and manufacturers are across the state, and you have different time differences on the Young Brothers schedules, on via air, et cetera, and across the island. And so the technology that we've had the biggest need for is how do we customize the systems that are out there, or how do we customize the system specific to Hawaii and the needs in Hawaii. On Oahu, it would be the multiple farmers across Oahu. How do we aggregate them? How do we get them on the same page? How do we get them growing for the need? How do we marry that information in with the grocers, clubs, and retailers and make that available and put that system together? So I see the technology will drive this, whether it's on the aquaponics, hydroponics that Fred's talking about, and increasing production per square foot, all the way to distribution, aggregation, and disintermediation between the farmer and the grocer, and trying to make that as a direct line of sight as possible so they're closer together, and that'll all be done through technology.
Great. Thank you very much. Fred, I'll start with you on this question. What is the technology that you find most interesting for production agriculture going forward?
So, we've traveled literally around the world looking at ag technology, and what we've seen is a huge surge in the use of computers, drones, robotics, artificial intelligence. We've seen in Driscolley greenhouses a robot picking only the ripest strawberries off of the plants. So this is going to be the near future, the very near future of agriculture will be turning toward technology. And, being prepared for it and bringing it to Hawaii, I think, is an important part of the goals.
Chad?
I agree with what Fred just said in that the technology that I think is necessary for the future. If Hawaii is to replace the 95% of the food that comes in, we're producing about 5% of what we need. So that's a huge delta between what we need and where we are. The food technology of production and ramping up production to the point where we can make up for that delta, or at least the majority of that delta between what we need and what we currently produce, that's all going to be technology driven, whether it's hydroponics, whether it's other systems that we're seeing across the planet. And I think our university system is going to be key in that. To make that happen, I think if we were to move to the distribution side and getting it to consumers, I'll circle back to that disintermediation, where we have a program right now where there's a local producer that produces product, has a toll for value-added, toll processing, meaning has a cents per pound to do that value-added processing. They have a toll for the distribution from the Big Island to every other island through us, and then our systems take that producer's vendor number, put it on the invoice that comes from us and is delivered to a grocery chain across the state, and the grocer pays the producer, not me, not the other value-added processing, but pays the producer, and then the producer pays this. But this allows the producer to be in direct relationship with the consumer that's making it available to the public, and it streamlines that entire process, where prior to that, there were so many trolls on so many bridges that it was just cost ineffective, and it drove the cost up. So once we put that clear line of sight and that direct connection and disintermediated that entire chain, you had a fixed cost, and a direct relationship with the customer. So designing a system like that through technology that we're currently doing, but expanding that, I think is the best place that a producer can be, because now if it were Fred in this case, Fred could then talk to the grocer directly, talk about crops, talk about what's coming up, do promos, all that type of thing that are necessary for the grocery retailer or club. And Fred has that direct relationship. And then these service providers, that's all they are, is just to provide that toll and allow Fred to get to the grocer, club, or retailer. So again, technology is going to drive every bit of this, from the education to the consumer's table. So pretty exciting stuff.
So the producers, certainly, benefit from technology, and ultimately the consumers,
Yes,
right? Because of the pricing.
correct, correct.
So let us switch gears a little, and let's talk about the college's new initiative, which is the Wahiawa Product Development Center. And I'll start with you, Chad, on this question. How do you see the proposed Wahiawa Product Development Center contributing to the local economy? And who do you see taking advantage of the facilities and training opportunities?
I think the Wahiawa Innovation Center is a critical first step, and it's the very first step that you take into developing new products and innovating in the agricultural sector. I see entrepreneurs taking advantage of this. I see farmers taking advantage of this. I see, I see what started at the Innovation Center turning into exports, because they'll have the proper tools, they'll have the proper science and the training to allow an idea to grow from an idea to actual production. And what better brand on the planet Earth than Hawaii? And so taking the Hawaii brand, taking legitimate Hawaii products, because there's a lot of product out there today that are fake Hawaii products on the grocery store shelf, but take legitimate products, grow them here from concept to actual products, and that'll all start at this innovation center. And last piece of that, I think, is that it's starting on the community college level is absolutely critical, because that allows pretty much anybody to enter this game with an idea and the dedication to make it happen. And so there's not a barrier to entry in this. This is an every man's or every woman's ability to come into this and create a concept and take it all the way to market. So this is a very exciting piece of what the Leeward Community College is doing.
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Fred?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything Chad said. So what we see in many of these centers is that people are able to learn how to create their new product. They learn how to do it safely, food safe, and then they're able to scale up and not only create a product for a local market, but possibly a product for export. You know, one of the things that the pandemic did for us was we realized that our product is very, very perishable. And, you know, even if we pivot a little bit, let's say we were growing tomatoes or cucumbers instead, it would still be a perishable product. But with this center, we would be able to put this product into a value-added situation and utilize that center. So I think this is going to be critical for the economy of Hawaii and for the people in Hawaii.
Thanks, Fred. Our next question, have you visited and or used a facility like the Wahiawa Product Development Center? And if so, where and what was your impression of it? Fred?
Yeah, so actually, we were able to visit the Food Bowl in New Zealand about a year and a half ago, and that was extremely inspirational. I think they have helped numerous entrepreneurs create a multitude of products that are not only consumed in New Zealand, but also around the world, exported around the world. These centers exist in Japan. JA is one of the big Japan cooperatives, and they help the farmers not only process but to market and distribute the produce. So, you know, it's just like Chad says, it's economies of scale when we get out there. It's a lot easier if you have a hui of people working together, and I think that's what we're trying to do here.
Chad, how about you?
I've only come at this through the manufacturing side, and so most of the large corporations that are in food manufacturing have their own type of innovation centers, R&D, and large budgets towards research and development and innovation. Agreeing with what Fred said, is you take that, for example, on the tomatoes, if you're going to make a tomato sauce or you're going to make some type of value-added product, a small farmer or independent farmer would have a hard time with an R&D budget. One, they probably don't have an R&D budget. If you can hui together with that, because you're going to have to go, what do we need to have in place for shelf stability? Shelf life, extended shelf life, what kind of products can we make out of that? Currently, we have a commercial kitchen and different products that we were starting to produce for grocers during certain seasons. We'd have to work with an independent lab, we'd have to get the shelf life testing, we'd have to do all that science and constantly send that out at great cost. A hui like this would allow all that science to be available and to go, hey, we can produce an amazing tomato sauce. Not only the marketing around that, but we're going to know the shelf life. We're going to know all the nutritional ingredient panel that you're going to need to go to retail and grocers. Your calorie counts, all the different things that are involved in nutritional panels. Having a hui that does that for you makes it every person's ability, every farmer or entrepreneur's ability to do that and do that at a lower cost to make it more readily available for the grocer. So the hui idea of this is the beautiful part about it.
Thanks, Chad. You know, earlier on we talked about the how the pandemic affected Hawaii's economy and certainly in agriculture. This question is in relation to that. The pandemic has brought into focus the need for diversified agriculture. Once tourism returns and offers a better profit margin to farmers, what plans are there to keep things from going back to the old way and drying up the new local farm to home model created by the pandemic? Fred?
I think that we're going to see more and more people enter this farming community. I really do. I think that the lands that we have available now in Whitmore and Wahiawa are going to expand that situation. So, and I also believe that the people in the hotels and the people in the tourist industry also understand how important it is to support local and buy local. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's going to actually grow.
Yeah.
Great. How about you, Chad?
I agree with Fred, and I think the silver lining, and I think there are several silver linings in the pandemic. Talking with either farmers or some of the manufacturers that we work with and bring them to market, the pandemic and the abrupt cutoff of tourism has left a mark, and I think it's indelible at this point. We have worked with manufacturers that all they did was the tourism side, or all they worked with was the restaurant side, and they were literally left with laying off hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And so we worked with them to pivot their current production capacity, and instead of making it for only the shops in Waikiki, we made it available to grocers and worked with them on the different pack sizes and so on. And I can tell you that the common cry that you hear coming out of the industries that were so devastated by the disruption in tourism is never again. Never again will they put all those eggs in one basket. They know now more than ever that they need to be diversified just for their own sustainability and their own profitability and their own long-term success. And so I think, yes, there'll be higher margins sometimes, but that is a rocky road, and being able to diversify and just continuing to support this hui in Whitmore. This is what will allow that to happen, so they can get into the proper places and they can start feeding local people who live here, and help ensure that their business does not go out of business again should another pandemic or something else happen.
Great, mahalo. Our next question, do you see collaboration between CTAR at UH Manoa, Go Farm, UH Hilo's College of Ag, and Kapiolani Community College's Culinary Institute of the Pacific? And I'll start. Here at Leeward, certainly we partner with many of these institutions, and for our Wahiawa Product Development Center, we definitely are looking at partnership with all of them. And we're still in our design stages, certainly, but we like to certainly partner with our other institutions and Go Farm, and also the new CIP at Kapiolani Community College. You guys have anything to add to that?
Well, for us, CTAR has been instrumental. When we first started in aquaponics in 2010, the CTAR was at my farm almost every day. So with Dr. Clyde Tamaro and Dr. Hariako and Dr. Kai Fox, and they actually stayed with me for 3 years out there working on our systems and developing our systems. So CTAR has been very, very, very effective for us. And we're actually talking about two things going on here. We're talking about the product development center, but we're also talking about the food hub at the 25 acres on Whitmore Avenue. And I would like to see a office for CTAR at that facility, even if it was shared for the product development center. I think having their presence there is going to be beneficial not only for the farmers, but also for the entrepreneurs that are coming into these facilities.
Very good.
Absolutely. Our experience, I think in general, the answer to that question is I think it's going to take the university system, CTAR, Go Farm, everybody to lock arms and get us through where we need to be to make up for the food that should be produced here. Our experience, and couldn't agree more with Fred on having CTAR located in the same location, in the centralized location, because of the wealth of knowledge they bring and the science they bring, the agronomy they bring for how do we take this fallow land and how do we get this to where it needs to be to produce like we need to produce for our population. Our experience with CTAR, we've worked directly with Dr. Albie Miles, directly with Dr. Noah Lincoln, and most of that was on not only the agriculture, but more so on the disaster recovery or designing a plan for if a disaster hits. Which, we get threatened by hurricanes seasonally. We know when it's coming. We have it on the calendar. Yet we don't have stockpiles of any food, any supplies, any water, any medical supplies. We don't have any of that, zero. And it was CTAR that brought that up at the Ag Conference. And so, lo and behold, the best place to support that also happens to be in central Oahu, in the Whitmore area, for whether it's FEMA, HIEMA, city and county, Department of Emergency Management. This too should be located across and away from the ocean. And so CTAR and the rest, I think, will be absolutely critical in making sure that we have the scientific foundation necessary to make this a success.
Great, thanks. You know that the Wahiawa Product Development Center, we are planning to have 4 laboratories that'll be used for research, development, product testing, small production, and we'll also have a packaging area adjoining those laboratories. Certainly, we also will have what we call a public loft where these new value-added products can be showcased at the center. But also, we'd like to be known as an education and training facility. So a question to both of you, what kind of courses, whether it be credit or non-credit, do you see most practical or applicable for Leeward Community College to offer at the Wahiawa Product Development Center? Chad?
I think some of the most important things that someone can learn going through there, particularly a young person coming in and wanting to determine which way they go with their career, if you just take a look at the size of the problem we're facing in Hawaii, agriculture should actually rocket up to a major part of the university, starting at Leeward in this innovation center. Food science is going to be absolutely critical. We are going to have to science the hell out of this problem, and that has to start at the university system. So food science, food safety, you would be, absolutely amazed and astounded, and sometimes perhaps embarrassed about how many people start in food or try to be a food entrepreneur and put zero focus whatsoever on food safety. If you don't have that food safety, FSMA certification, and this is federal law now. Not a lot of people paying attention to it, but it's federal law now. So if that food safety piece, if you don't have that in there or as part of your program, you can't sell to the grocers, clubs, and retailers, particularly the national chains that are, being very, that have a very stringent protocol for that. And so being able to teach that food safety system or the food safety protocols necessary is going to be critical to make sure that that's part of every program going forward. So between food safety and food science, I think that's going to have to be part of absolutely all curriculum going forward with all things agriculture.
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, Chad. How about you, Fred? Your recommendations?
Yeah, of course I agree with Chad on that point, but I think this is a great chance for LCC to expand their existing curriculum. So you already have food science and nutritional course, but expand that, and as a credit course, I would like it to be a credit course, include food safety requirements and nutritional labeling. These are things, this is real world practical knowledge that I don't think you can get in school right now. I think that your business management and marketing school should have a focus, even just a course on geared toward value-added product development and innovation, for example. Again, something you can't get out in the world right now. Culinary arts program, they teach you how to cook, but do they teach you how to create a value-added product that can be marketed worldwide?
Right.
And I think that these are the things, and this is just a small sampling of what you already have here that we can expand on at the Product Development Center.
Great, thank you very much.
I'd just like to add on to Fred's comment on the value-added piece and the business side of that. So if you got a farmer who has a crop and all these beautiful tomatoes made it to market, but there's a bunch of bees in there, there's a bunch of lower grade items, or perhaps you've got additionals that you can't sell. Well, if you have a value-added product, you're going to take those bees, which either you're going to plow under or do something else with, and you can turn that into a sauce, you can turn that into a marinade, you can turn that into, even if you move to the cold storage side, in what you're designing and what Senator Dela Cruz and Jimmy Nakatani of ADC have envisioned for this, and Leeward Community College taking the lead, has been to be able to do that. And so on the business side, you're going to take, not only did you not lose that crop, you actually are making more money out of that crop than you probably did out of your original crop, because now you've got a longer shelf life, a second product, a product that you can charge more, hence the value added. And so it really takes that that kind of one-dimensional system into so many other dimensions, and then to export as well, where it would not be out of line to say that value-added system will then in turn drive the other piece, because that's where the margin and the money is, and the export capacity. So it's super exciting.
To expand on that, you know, in many places that we've visited, we've seen the value-added producer actually use grade A product in his in what he's creating and marketing it for much more. So the farmer is getting more money, and the producer is getting more money.
Great, thank you very much. I hope I can pronounce this this word, but can you talk about regenerative farming? So I'll start with you, Fred.
That's pretty good, Ron. Yeah. So I mean, I think we practice a type of regenerative farming in our aquaponic systems. I mean, we're using fish water for our nutrients. We're using solar panels to produce our electricity and our power. So, and we're recycling that water. So our carbon footprint is relatively small on our farm. But we're also in very early discussions with two other landowners who are looking at turning. One of them is Ko'ola Golf Course, for example, who the owner would like to turn to agriculture production. And so we're looking at agroforestry, the use of edible fruits like breadfruit as the canopy trees, and the understory trees perhaps being cacao or vanilla, that are high value crops that could be used, and just bringing the land back from being a golf course into farming. Along with that, we're talking about utilizing the trees for the landscape industry so that we can harvest the tree, bring it out to a hotel, and sell it to the hotels. I think these things all have possibilities. And both projects are considering incorporating biochar into the process of restoring the soil in the area. And part of it is because they have a lot of invasive and non-native trees that need to be taken down. And so we have this seed stock for biochar on these acreages.
Chad, you want to add anything to that?
I think the common theme with regenerative agriculture is the science piece to that. And again, going back to the university and Leeward Community College, CTAR and all of those that will need to be a part of this, and not just the regenerative side, but there's types of farming that are not good for the environment, and you need to be sensitive to carbon sequestration, and all the technologies that are out there are going to need to come to bear to help Hawaii get through this. And so I'm very excited about what Fred is doing and what other people are doing, and the vision for the Central Oahu, and could not be more excited about how, whether it's regenerative or other, the science that the university system's starting to bring to bear here. So very pleased to see the direction of which we're coming, particularly coming out of this pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is there a system or mechanism in place to capture and disseminate best practices, lessons learned, information, and data back to the agricultural community? And so I can start. Certainly Leeward's plan is to provide workshops and materials to local farmers, aspiring entrepreneurs, students. As we learn more through the work of the center, we'd like the center to be a repository as far as information and that we can, and best practices, so that people can, visit the center for either research, development, or consultation. We feel that as we develop our objectives and our plans for the center, more and more people will utilize the center in this type of capacity. You guys have anything to add to that?
I agree with you 100%. I think the university system would be where that should reside and would be right at the heart of best practices. Any large organization would actually have a system of best practices where they take that out to their other branches. I know we do for all of our neighbor island operations and our West Coast operations, where you're always wanting to make sure that that doesn't get wasted. And if you're doing something really good in one place, you can do it in all places. And I think the university system, particularly Leeward, would be right at the heart of best practice to be shared with all shareholders.
Right.
Yeah, I think that this should be the start. I mean, I think, CTAR in particular has been, I keep lauding them, but they've been instrumental in helping us with our GAP practices on the farm and bringing us into compliance with FSMA. We have been food safety certified since the day we started, but that has grown and grown and grown and has become such a burden to maintain food safety. Yeah. Just the number of logs and ledgers that you have to produce is extremely burdensome. And without the university system, I think we would have had a very, very difficult time staying compliant throughout. So we're really grateful to have them. And I think that's the best way to disseminate information like this.
Yeah. I don't think most people know that if you're not following the GAP and FSMA and so on, even at the farm level or the ranch level, we've got ranchers in this state who are raising cattle, but that head of cattle can never go to market under a BRC or Global Food Safety Initiative program, because it all starts on having to be certified on all the burdensome documentation, et cetera, that literally starts with the handling of the livestock from birth to harvest. So having the university take the lead on that, I think, is going to be absolutely critical.
Okay. Here's another question. Have you heard of hyperbaric high-pressure processing? And if so, what would be the benefits for such equipment on Oahu?
That's all yours, Chad.
I was looking towards you, Fred. So hyperbaric pressure processing is one way to take a product and, without adding heat, which will impact the flavor profile, without adding chemicals or other agents to retard molding or other pathogens from growing. Hyperbaric pressure processing takes a packaged product already for market and takes that packaged product, puts it under roughly 87,000 pounds per square inch pressure to kill pathogens in it, and then it for about 10 minutes. And so now those pathogens are unable to hurt you. At least it slows the growth of those. And so you can take a say if you had a local guacamole or a local sauce or tomato sauce or whatever, like we talked about previously, if it goes through this system, you don't add chemicals, you don't add additives, and you don't have to add heat through pasteurization. And but it'll extend the shelf life 3, 4, 5, up to 20 times under that HPP system. It's a great system. It's somewhat labor intensive. There's a bunch of science behind it. There's technologists that need to run that system. So again, back to the university and back to the training. But that would allow a local producer to be able to take their product. We had a conversation with Punahele, Ethan West from Punahele, and Lauren Choop on the Ulu side, Ulumana, and discuss with them just earlier this week, what would that do and how would that take the baby food and actually allow you to go 120 days with it rather than 30 days. And so if you can extend the shelf life, you're going to extend the profitability of that product. And so that'd be an interesting addition to a system or to Central Oahu, where people could take their product and kind of use that as in a community way.
Thank you very much. Fred, you want to add anything to that?
Nope.
We have time for just one more question, and this question probably came from an educator. But what would you like to say to students in the middle schools, high schools, and colleges to encourage them to get into a career in agriculture? Fred?
So that's really funny because pre-COVID, we were bringing through, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 public school students through our farm to show them hydroponic and aquaponic technologies and where agriculture is moving. I think it's important that we let them know that it's not about just going out into the dirt, which is fun too, but going out into the dirt and pulling weeds and harvesting stuff. But it incorporates, our systems incorporate math, technology, science, everything, engineering, STEM, basically. So, we want them to think outside of the box. In addition to that, agriculture is not just about the farming side. There's product development, like we're seeing here. There's agronomy. There's a whole slew of things that go into getting the food onto our table that doesn't necessarily mean just directly being out in the field farming. So there's an entire career. It's a huge industry. Agriculture is just huge. There's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that's something that we want to convey to these children.
Great. Chad?
Absolutely, and I totally agree with what Fred just said. And if you're a junior higher or a high schooler, there's been so much disruption in our economy, particularly in this last year. And as you look forward in the future, you're going to want to choose a career to focus on that's going to have a long run, that's going to hopefully turn into a career for the rest of your life. If you're looking for a career like that with stability, when you take a look at what our scientists are predicting with climate change and how just worldwide how that's going to impact our agricultural systems across the planet, you take a look at just Hawaii alone trying to make up for that 95% of product that should be grown here or manufactured here and value added and processed here. I see agriculture in Hawaii and the science behind it as one of the best areas to focus on for a career, a lifetime of value, as this continues to evolve, as we face climate change, and as we try to make our state sustainable and secure.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Well, this concludes our panel discussion. We certainly like to thank our two experts, Fred Lau and Chad Buck, for their time and expertise this morning. I'd also like to thank our virtual audience for your attendance and participation. And To close our session, I'd like to reintroduce our Chancellor, Carlos Penalosa. Carlos?
Wow, what a great discussion. I want to take a moment to thank our panelists, Chad and Fred, as well as our moderator, Ron, for such an engaging conversation. I want to thank all participants for engaging with us today and Senator Donovan de la Cruz for his support. You will be receiving a follow-up email with a link to today's recording and a link to information about how you can donate to our fundraising efforts. Mahalo.